The Bangkok night sky was a canvas of scattered diamonds, but in Ploy's small apartment, only a profound silence reigned. She sat by the window, her gaze lost, watching raindrops trace crooked, mournful paths down the glass. Her heart felt heavier than the thunderclouds gathering outside. It had been a week since she last saw Fah, an entire week since their argument, since the words that shattered everything they had so carefully built together. Fah's trembling voice echoed in her memory, a constant, painful refrain. If love means hurting each other, maybe we should stop. The words had pierced Ploy's heart. She had wanted to scream, to pull Fah close and beg her not to go, to say it was all a mistake. But pride, that stubborn, foolish pride, had won that night. It had sealed her lips and frozen her in place while Fah walked away. Now, all Ploy had were the remnants of their life together. A phone full of messages she'd typed out but never had the courage to send. A gallery of photos she couldn't bring herself to delete, each one a sharp, sweet memory that refused to fade. She was living in a ghost town of their love, haunted by what was and what could have been. The silence in her apartment wasn't just an absence of sound. It was an ache, a void shaped exactly like Fah. Across the sprawling, rain-slicked city, Fah sat in her car, parked just outside their old cafe. She came here every evening after work, a pilgrimage of hope she couldn't admit even to herself. She'd order the same caramel latte Ploy used to love, the bittersweet taste a reminder of happier times. She'd sit by the window, pretending to read, but her eyes would skim the street, searching for a familiar silhouette, hoping that maybe, just maybe, Ploy would walk through that door again. She told herself it was just a coincidence, that this calf was simply on her way home. But her heart, that traitorous, honest muscle in her chest, knew the truth. It wasn't coincidence. It was longing. A deep, persistent longing to turn back time, to unsay the words, to feel Ploy's hand in hers once more. Each day, the hope dwindled a little more, leaving a residue of quiet despair. That day, as the gentle drizzle turned into a relentless downpour, she saw it. A figure, rushing past the cafe door, drenched by the sudden storm, clutching a folder over their head. The movement was so familiar it made her breath catch in her throat. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Could it be? It couldn't be, but it was. Ploy? The name was a whisper, a prayer on her lips. Startled by the sound of her name, Ploy turned. Her hair was plastered to her face, rain dripping from her chin. And then, their eyes met through the rain-streaked glass. It was an instant of pure recognition, to souls finding each other across a chasm of silence and pain. The world seemed to fade away, leaving only the two of them, suspended in that single, breathless moment. For a second, Fah was frozen. Then, instinct took over. She pushed her chair back, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm, and moved towards the door. She hesitated for only a fraction of a second, her hand hovering over the handle, a torrent of doubt and hope rushing through her. Then, she pushed the door open. The little bell above it chimed softly, a delicate sound cutting through the storm's roar. Ploy stood there dripping, looking as stunned as Fah felt. The folder she'd been holding had slipped from her grasp, its contents scattering on the wet pavement, forgotten. Her eyes, wide and luminous, were fixed on Fah. "You're still here," Ploy whispered, her voice barely audible over the rain. It wasn't a question, but a statement of disbelief, of fragile hope. A tear traced a path down Fah's cheek, mingling with the raindrops. She managed a watery smile. "Always," she replied, her own voice thick with emotion. "I never really left." They stood there for a moment, the cafe doorway a threshold between their past and their future. Then Fah stepped aside, holding the door open, a silent invitation. Ploy stepped inside, leaving the storm behind her. They sat at their old table, the one in the corner by the window. The air between them was fragile, yet electric, crackling with all the words left unsaid, all the apologies unspoken. The clatter of the cafe, the scent of coffee, the hum of the city outside, it all faded into a distant murmur. Ploy stared down at her hands, tracing the rim of the fresh coffee cup Fah had ordered for her. "I didn't mean what I said that night," she finally murmured, her voice soft and full of regret. "I was scared, so scared of losing you. And in my fear, that's exactly what I did." Fah's heart ached with empathy. She reached across the small table, her fingers gently brushing against Ploy's. The simple touch sent a jolt through both of them, a spark of connection they thought was lost forever. "We were both scared," Fah said softly. "But maybe love isn't about being fearless. Maybe it's about being terrified and still choosing to come back." It's about finding our way back to each other, even after the storm. Ploy looked up, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, searching Fah's face for the truth. Do you still believe in us? She asked, her voice trembling with vulnerability. Fah held her gaze, her own eyes full of unwavering certainty. She nodded slowly, a small, definite movement. I never stopped, she whispered. A moment passed between them, quiet, trembling, infinite. The weight of the last week, the pain, the loneliness, it all seemed to hang in the air before dissolving into this single, shared understanding. Then, without another word, Fah stood up. She walked around the table and gently, so gently, pulled Ploy to her feet. Ploy came willingly, her body melting into Fah's embrace as if it were the only place it had ever belonged. Fah buried her face in Ploy's damp hair, inhaling the familiar scent of her shampoo mixed with the fresh smell of rain and coffee. Their hearts, which had been beating out of sync for so long, began to find their rhythm again, a steady, comforting beat that spoke of home. When Fah kissed her, it wasn't a desperate, hungry kiss born from absence. It was soft, healing, and full of promise. It was a kiss that spoke of forgiveness and second chances. It tasted like coming home after a long, arduous journey. Outside, a bolt of lightning flashed, illuminating the city in a stark, momentary brilliance. But inside the warm calf, wrapped in each other's arms, everything was calm. The storm had passed. They stayed like that for a long time, two silhouettes against the city lights, holding on tight to what they had once lost and, by some miracle, found again. Later, as the calf lights began to dim for closing time, Fah whispered against Ploy's ear, "Do you remember what you said when we first met?" A quiet, genuine laugh escaped Ploy's lips, a sound Fah had missed more than she realized. I think I said I didn't believe in love at first sight. Fah smiled, pulling back just enough to look into her eyes. And I told you I'd prove you wrong. Ploy's smile was radiant, even through her tears. Well, she said, her voice full of wonder, you did. They shared one last, lingering kiss before leaving the calf, their hands clasped tightly together. They walked out into the rain-washed night, not as strangers or ex-lovers, but as two people reborn, their love renewed. As they crossed the street, their reflections shimmering on the wet pavement under the warm glow of the street lights, Fah turned to her, a playful, serious look in her eyes. You know this isn't the end, right? Ploy squeezed her hand, her heart full. No, she said, her voice clear and strong. It's the part where we start again. Thank you so much for watching and for being part of this journey. We're so close to the finale, and your support means everything. If you've been touched by Ploy and Fah's story, please consider hitting that subscribe button. We've noticed that a huge majority of you watching aren't subscribed yet, and joining our community is the best way to make sure you don't miss what happens next. Click subscribe, and we'll see you in the final chapter.